What if history isn't moving forward blindly, but following a script written long ago? What if one man standing in ancient Jerusalem saw the collapse of empires that didn't yet exist, the rise of a kingdom that would outlast time, and a global shaking so severe that the earth itself would stagger under its weight? Isaiah was not merely predicting events. He was seeing the end from the beginning. Before Revelation was written, before Rome ruled, before the world we know even formed, Isaiah saw the throne. And once you understand what he saw, prophecy stops being distant and becomes disturbingly personal. Welcome to Hidden Origins. This is where ancient prophecy meets the world we are living in now. Let's begin at the moment everything changed. Isaiah's story begins in a year of national uncertainty, the year King Uzziah died. Judah looked stable on the surface, wealthy, religious, organized, but beneath that appearance was moral decay. Worship had become routine, justice had become selective, faith had become performance. And into that fragile moment, Isaiah didn't receive a strategy, he received a vision. He saw the Lord, not metaphorically, not symbolically, but enthroned, high, lifted above every earthly authority. The temple shook, the air trembled, seraphim cried out holiness so overwhelming that Isaiah collapsed under the weight of it. This moment defines everything that follows. Isaiah doesn't volunteer confidently. He doesn't boast of insight. He breaks. He realizes that proximity to holiness exposes corruption instantly. Yet instead of destruction, cleansing follows. Fire touches his lips, guilt is removed, and only then does the calling come. This is important because Isaiah's authority doesn't come from intelligence, status, or position. It comes from encounter. From that point forward, Isaiah is no longer speaking only to kings. He is speaking across centuries. His prophecies move in layers, what scholars call dual horizons. One horizon speaks to immediate danger, Assyria rising, Babylon waiting, exile approaching. The other horizon stretches far beyond his lifetime, toward a figure who would arrive quietly, yet rule eternally. Isaiah speaks of a child, but not merely a child, a son, but not merely human, a ruler whose authority does not expand by conquest, but by peace. This king would not seize power, power would rest on him naturally.
Isaiah describes a dynasty cut down to a stump. David's royal line appearing finished, yet from that dead stump, life returns. A branch grows, not through political revival, but divine intervention. And then Isaiah sees something even shocking. This king would not arrive first in glory, he would arrive in suffering. Isaiah describes a servant rejected, wounded, crushed, not for his own guilt, but for the guilt of others. The punishment meant to restore humanity would fall on him. Healing would come through his suffering. This is not how empires operate. This is not how human power works. Yet Isaiah insists this suffering servant would succeed. His mission would expand beyond Israel, beyond borders, beyond ethnicity. Light would reach the nations. Salvation would stretch to the ends of the earth. Then the tone shifts. Isaiah looks forward again, but this time not to humility. He sees authority returning, judgment, order restored, creation itself responding to the reign of the rightful king. Nations stream toward instruction instead of war. Weapons are reshaped into tools of life. Conflict becomes obsolete, not through treaties, but through transformation. Isaiah isn't imagining utopia, he's witnessing restoration. And this is where the pattern becomes clear. Isaiah's vision always moves in sequence: corruption to confrontation to cleansing to restoration. This rhythm doesn't apply only to nations, it applies to humanity. It applies to history. It applies to us. Because Isaiah wasn't just revealing what God would do then, he was revealing how God operates until the end. And in the next part, Isaiah's vision darkens. He looks beyond kings and kingdoms and sees the earth itself begin to tremble. If you want to follow this story as it unfolds, from ancient prophecy to global destiny, subscribe to Hidden Origins now.
Isaiah's vision does not stay focused on Judah, Assyria, or Babylon for long. At a certain point, the scale changes. He stops describing regional judgment and begins describing something far larger. Isaiah looks ahead and sees a moment when the problem is no longer one nation's sin, but humanity's rebellion reaching a breaking point. What he describes is not symbolic poetry meant to scare. It is global language, cosmic language. The earth itself becomes unstable. Isaiah says the world will be emptied, twisted, and turned upside down. Cities collapse, order dissolves. Systems people trusted for generations suddenly fail. This is not an invasion, it is a reckoning. The reason is clear. Humanity has crossed boundaries it was never meant to cross. Laws ignored, covenants broken, truth redefined. The earth, Isaiah says, is not only shaking physically, but morally. This is critical. Isaiah isn't just predicting earthquakes. He's describing a moral collapse so severe that creation reacts to it. The ground staggers like a drunkard. The weight of transgression presses down until stability is lost. Everything built on pride begins to crack. Governments, economies, institutions, even religious systems. Nothing artificial survives the shaking. And then Isaiah reveals something chilling. This shaking is intentional. God is not losing control. He is removing what cannot last. Isaiah's words echo a principle repeated throughout Scripture. When God shakes the world, it is not to destroy what is eternal, but to expose what is temporary. Everything false must fall, so that what is true can remain. Centuries later, the writer of Hebrews would echo the same idea. When God shakes both heaven and earth, it is so that only the unshakable remains. Isaiah saw this long before. He describes a day when the proud hide in caves, when human authority becomes meaningless, when status, wealth, and power provide no protection at all. In that moment, it becomes painfully obvious who humanity has been trusting. And then comes the connection. What Isaiah saw is almost identical to what John later records in Revelation. A great earthquake, the sun darkened, the moon turned red, stars falling, mountains moved, kings and elites hiding in fear, begging for cover from the presence of God. Two prophets, 7 centuries apart, the same vision. This is not coincidence, it is confirmation. Isaiah was seeing the day of the Lord, not a single event, but a climax, a moment when human arrogance reaches its peak and divine authority responds. Yet even here, Isaiah introduces hope. He explains that this shaking is not random destruction, it is purification. The earth is defiled, yes, but defilement can be cleansed. Judgment clears space for restoration. And then something extraordinary happens. After describing worldwide collapse, Isaiah suddenly lifts his eyes upward. He sees the Lord reigning, not hidden, not distant, but visibly enthroned. The sun and moon, once the brightest objects known to humanity,
pale in comparison to his glory. Light itself becomes unnecessary. This detail matters because it appears again at the end of Scripture. John describes a city where there is no need for sun or moon because God's presence illuminates everything. Isaiah saw it first. This means the shaking is not the end of the story, it is the doorway. Isaiah explains that when judgment completes its work, righteousness begins to take root. Humanity finally learns what it refused to learn through peace. The world discovers that stability was never found in power, but in alignment with its Creator. For those who trust Him, the shaking is not terror, it is transition. Isaiah says peace will be established, not because people earned it, but because God ordains it. The faithful stand not because they are strong, but because their foundation is unmovable. This is the dividing line Isaiah reveals. When everything collapses, there are only two positions left: those clinging to what is falling and those anchored to what cannot fall. Isaiah's message is clear. The world will shake. That is unavoidable. What matters is where you are standing when it does. Isaiah pulls back the curtain even further. He identifies the spiritual force behind collapsing empires, the ancient spirit of pride that first rose in heaven and still governs human systems today. If you want to understand why the world shakes and what survives when it does, subscribe to Hidden Origins.
As Isaiah's vision moves forward, it stops focusing on earthquakes and collapsing cities and begins to expose what is behind them. Isaiah names a city, Babylon. But what he is describing goes far beyond brick walls, towers, or geography. Babylon, in Isaiah's vision, is not just a kingdom, it is a system, a way of thinking, a pattern of power, a structure built on pride, control, wealth, and rebellion against God. In Isaiah's time, Babylon represented the height of human achievement. Its architecture was unmatched, its knowledge advanced, its armies unstoppable. To the world, Babylon looked eternal. But Isaiah sees something hidden beneath the surface. He sees a spirit whispering into the hearts of kings, the same spirit that once said, "I will ascend, I will exalt myself, I will be like the Most High." This is where Isaiah's language shifts. When he describes the fall of Babylon's king, the words suddenly exceed any human ruler. He speaks of a fall from heaven, of ambition that reached too high, of a being cast down because pride crossed a line. Isaiah is pulling back the veil. Behind Babylon's throne stands an ancient rebellion, the first rebellion. This is the same arrogance that entered Eden, the same deception that promised humanity godlike status without submission, the same voice that whispers power without accountability. Babylon is simply its most successful expression. And Isaiah is clear, this system will always rise and it will always fall, because pride can build towers, but it cannot build permanence. Isaiah declares that Babylon's glory will collapse suddenly and completely, not gradually, not respectfully. Its merchants will vanish, its music will fall silent, its confidence will dissolve into dust. History confirms this, but prophecy goes further. Isaiah isn't only speaking about ancient Babylon, he's describing a pattern that repeats throughout history. Whenever a civilization glorifies itself, redefines truth, and removes God from authority, Babylon is reborn. Different names, same spirit. Centuries later, John would see Babylon again, not as ruins, but revived. A global system intoxicated with wealth, influence, and deception. Nations aligned not by righteousness, but by profit. Leaders drunk on power, truth traded for convenience. Isaiah saw its beginning, John saw its end.
And both prophets agree on one thing: Babylon always collapses under its own pride. Isaiah emphasizes that God's judgment targets arrogance specifically, not culture, not creativity, not progress, but self-exaltation. Pride is the root sin, the sin that corrupted heaven before it corrupted earth. That is why every empire built on self-glory eventually self-destructs. Babylon doesn't need enemies, it consumes itself. Isaiah contrasts this sharply with Zion. Babylon rises by force, Zion is established by righteousness. Babylon rules through fear, Zion governs through peace. Babylon exalts itself, Zion exalts God, and this difference determines everything. Isaiah explains that when Babylon falls, something remains, a remnant not aligned with the system, a small, refined, unimpressive by worldly standards, yet unshakable. This remnant survives not because they resisted power, but because they refused to worship it. They no longer trusted alliances, armies, or empires. They leaned entirely on the Lord. And because of that, they stood when everything else fell. Isaiah calls them the returning ones, not those who escaped destruction, but those who turned back. This remnant is not defined by ethnicity, status, or borders. It is defined by loyalty, faithfulness, alignment. And then Isaiah widens the lens again. This remnant is not destined to stay small forever. From it will come a light that reaches beyond Israel into every nation, foreigners, outsiders, those once excluded, all drawn not by domination, but by truth. Babylon gathered nations through control. Zion gathers them through invitation. Isaiah sees a future where people from every background stream toward God, not as conquered subjects, but as willing worshipers. This is the beginning of the reversal. Babylon's fall is not the end of the story. It clears the way for something far greater. Because when pride collapses, humility rises. And in the final part, Isaiah brings everything together: the shaking, the fall of Babylon, the remnant, the suffering servant, all leading to one breathtaking conclusion: a new creation where God dwells openly with humanity, and history finally reaches its intended destination. After visions of collapse, pride, and judgment, Isaiah does something unexpected. He lifts his eyes beyond destruction and sees renewal, not repair, not reform, recreation. Isaiah speaks of a future where God does not simply fix what is broken, but makes something entirely new. He uses the same language found at the very beginning of Genesis, creation language, words reserved only for divine action. A new heaven, a new earth. This is not symbolism for optimism. It is the destination of history. Isaiah describes a world where sorrow no longer has permanence, where grief does not linger, where death, humanity's oldest enemy, is finally swallowed and erased. Tears are not ignored or minimized. They are wiped away by God Himself. This matters because Isaiah is not offering escape from reality. He is offering the healing of reality. Creation itself is restored. Joy replaces mourning. Peace replaces fear. Even nature responds. Mountains, trees, and fields described as rejoicing. The curse that entered through rebellion is finally undone. And at the center of this renewed world stands a king. Not a symbol, not an idea, a person. Isaiah returns again to Emmanuel, God with us, The same figure he saw as a child born in humility, the same servant who suffered in silence, now revealed as a ruler of unending authority. Isaiah saw both comings. First, the servant rejected, then the king revealed. He describes one whose garments are stained, not with defeat, but with victory. One who comes not to negotiate with evil, but to end it. The meek servant becomes the righteous judge. Mercy and justice meet perfectly in him. Centuries later, John would see the same figure, heaven opening, a rider on a white horse, faithful, true, crowned, the Word of God. Isaiah saw him first through prophetic fire. John saw him clearly through unveiled glory. This king does not rule through fear. He rules through righteousness.
And under his reign, something astonishing happens. The nations are no longer divided by hostility. What once caused war becomes worship. Cultures bring what is best, not as trophies, but as offerings. Diversity is not erased, it is redeemed. Isaiah describes a city whose gates never close. No threat remains, no night exists. Light does not come from the sun, but from God's presence filling everything. This is where Isaiah and Revelation speak in perfect harmony. God no longer dwells behind veils or temples. He dwells openly with humanity. Distance is gone, separation ended, the purpose of creation fulfilled. History does not conclude with destruction, it concludes with communion. And then Isaiah delivers one final truth, quiet but powerful. This future is not only about where history is going, it is about how we live now. Isaiah reminds us that darkness will cover the earth, but light will rise. When confusion increases, clarity is not found in systems, politics, or power. It is found in alignment with God. Those who trust Him are kept in peace, not because the world is calm, but because their foundation is secure. Isaiah saw kingdoms rise and fall. He watched alliances fail. He observed humanity repeatedly place its trust in the wrong things. Yet through it all, one truth remained unshaken. God is still on the throne. The same God who declared the end from the beginning has not changed. The same plan continues to unfold. The shaking will come. Babylon will fall. The king will return. The question Isaiah leaves us with is simple but piercing. When history reaches its conclusion, where will you be standing? With the systems that are passing away, or with the kingdom that cannot be shaken? Isaiah's prophecies were never meant to frighten the faithful. They were meant to prepare them, to anchor them, to remind them that no matter how dark the night becomes, the dawn is certain. Because the final word of history is not judgment, it is renewal. A world restored, a people redeemed, and a king whose reign never ends. If this journey through prophecy has given you clarity, hope, or understanding, subscribe to Hidden Origins. Here, we uncover the truths written long ago so we can understand the world we're living in now. Until next time, stay grounded, stay watchful, and remember, the story isn't ending in darkness.